oh, I don't have a spectacular experience, so I'm not going to share anything. Metaphysics is so many different areas are in metaphysics. And we have interesting kinds of encounters sometimes, or maybe like I had a friend whose relative had died and she didn't realize it, and all of a sudden the person appeared in her room, and it was like, oh my gosh, and there's so many different areas that we might have questions about, or we might have noticed something. It can be very minor, but it's important because people are experiencing things that they may not understand what they're experiencing. Oh, this is out of the ordinary. Oh my gosh, one time I had this happen, and it was kind of, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Sharing, and I hope you all saw the list of possible areas of metaphysics, because there's so many. It could be an unusual dream that came true. It could be anything. It could be, oh, I feel like a presence around me sometimes or something, and I don't know what that is, or how can I connect with that? If, so that's the kind of stuff. It can be very minor. People I've heard sometimes think, oh, well, I don't have woo-woo experiences. We all have something that we wouldn't even be interested in this if we weren't having some sort, or have a question about something and say, I read about something or heard about something, and I'm not sure what that's about. And we're trying to have people share more of their interests in metaphysics, or questions about metaphysics, or things they've experienced a little bit, so that it starts the discussion and it starts the sharing, because we all have information that we can share with each other. So, and we came to this, wanted to try this new format because for a while, at least off and on, because there have been requests for that. People saying, well, I just don't understand how to do such and such, I really want more information, so we thought that might be a nice place to start, is just share anything, because it can lead to something else. Does that make sense to everybody at all? Any questions?
Yeah. It's also like, everybody's got different interests, and it's like, me and Pat, we are facilitating this, but we're not knowledgeable in all of these topics because the topics are so broad and so many. And so we just share from what we know. And that's why we're saying it takes input to have more of a broader reach. If there's no input, all we can do is share what we know. So I'm just saying that's why this feedback is welcomed, and it always has been. And we've been saying that all along. So, we appreciate that. Yes, Barbara. But you unmute yourself.
I'm glad you said that, Pat, because it's kind of interesting. I'm in this dreamers group. We've been meeting since COVID practically. It's a small group. We meet once a week. And so we've gotten pretty close. And just recently, about half of us are dreaming about whales. And we don't know why we're dreaming about whales, and we're inviting the whale to have some interaction with us. And then last evening, I picked up, it was either the New Yorker or the New York Times, and they had an article about how important grandmas are. And one part of the article said that only humans and whales have the grandmother be an important part of raising the children, and how much more successful children grow and survive when they have a maternal grandmother. So we're just paying attention. We don't know why whales are showing up. But
it's interesting about the whales. There's been a number of, since it was Earth Day not too long ago, a number of videos and things about nature around the world and what's happening. And whales are hugely in crisis as well. They were talking about some of the whales being in crisis. Who knows what communication might be occurring even on that level. But that's a cool piece of information. I had no idea about maternal. That's great. Thanks for sharing. But So it could be something on all different levels.
It could be something on so many different levels, and you're right, it could be. I have another friend who lives in north of Seattle, and the whales come in and go in and out with the tide almost all summer. And I don't think they're the same kind of whales as we're dreaming about, but they're whales. And so we're just going to pay attention and see what happens.
That is so cool. Wow. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Oh, have any of you ever had an energy treatment? Someone done an energy work on you? That's cool. Sometimes there's some cool experiences to share about those too, if you've ever had one, what you noticed. Anybody else want to share anything? Or ask a question? Just a minute. Did Barb, you want to do another? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to take all the airtime, but
Good.
I was quite sick with some respiratory problems, and I went to a reconnective healer, which I think is energy work. I went to her several times, but the last time I went to her, I felt the presence of a lot of women, and I felt they were my women ancestors, and they were gathered all around me. And I was sitting up, and I just got absolutely shaking, just completely shaking and shaking. And it was a really emotional experience, and my guide was there to help me. And after that experience, my respiratory situation really got a lot better. It's not gone, but it's so much better.
Oh, that's great.
That was an energy thing that I experienced.
Well, that is interesting because it reminds me of I had just gone to a healer. I mean, a crystal person who uses crystals that I like to go to, this guy in Tucson. And so you're laying there, and as soon as I laid down, within a minute, I felt hands all over me, and there were all these, and some female guides came in, healers came in and different things. And he, is the crystal guy, also noticed all kinds of, beings come in. And it was really interesting to feel that, even tangibly, that there are a lot of times healers or beings that are there trying to help us. So it's really cool to experience that sometimes. Reminds me of what you just had, because I had a lot of women. Okay, here we have a hand, Elaine.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't hear you, Elaine.
I think I'm muted.
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My husband, the engineer, he's not a feeler, touchy woozy kind of guy. But one time I did Reiki on him, and he said, "Oh, and there were other hands on me." I said, "You sure it wasn't?" No, he says, "No, there was definitely a third hand." I said, "Well, who do you think it was?" He says he thought it was his mother who had passed. And then going back to the whales, I had heard in the past that the whales actually carry the history of this planet, and that's why it's so important to save them. Because they've gone up and down in numbers, and some countries are still killing them for food. But it's important that we have the whales. And then I've been around people who are very visually, and they claim that they saw the whales swim in the air. Of course, at one time this planet was covered with water. So time doesn't matter, then or now or in the future. So it's kind of interesting to have these things about the whales being back. Yeah, welcome them.
That is cool.
They have very unusual senses. That's why they beach themselves, because the Earth shifts, the polar North Pole shifts, and their senses, their DNA still say this is the route, but now it's changed, and now they're beaching themselves. Their system hasn't adjusted to the newness of the ley lines and everything else shifting. So there are many theories that I find it interesting.
Yeah, that is really neat. I think we have so much to learn from the animal life on this planet that we just are not tuned into, especially when you think about the oceans. It had, at one time it was all ocean. Think of all the ocean life that is there that has a history with it. That's cool. Deb, did you want to say something? Share something? Oh, I wasn't sure if you put your hand up. Deb Chappa.
Oh, okay.
No? No, okay.
Steve does. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I'd like to share on that theme because it's what I work with all the time. Are you getting too much glare on that?
Looks nice.
Can you see the title?
Yeah, super sense.
And the super sense is just also part of the metaphysical sense of being aware of the super sense. And every time that you go out into nature, just recently we've been working with 2 eggs, that one egg hatched, and then 24 hours later the next egg hatched, and then now you can just, I sent pictures of the 2 beaks open, and a beak on a 3-day-old bird is just amazing that it can hardly hold up the beak in the air, but yet it's so wide. And then going out hiking with my friend that we came upon up at the Whipple Visitor Center, and there's a sweat lodge that has been in use by the Native Americans and the Hopis, but anyone can visit this sweat lodge, and it's got a lot of early history of that canyon that takes you up towards the Whipple Observatory. So there's just so much to see that is active in this Santa Cruz Valley.
Well, you know, so interesting. Think about Native American culture that was always so close to nature, the way they lived. So many of their power animals, they talked about power animals, you know, hooking with nature on a very intimate level, on another level than just physical level. Interesting too, in ancient Egypt, a lot of the gods, you know, were animals. Jackal-headed god, the Horus with the, you know, all these Bast, you know, the cat god. There was all these different gods that were animal, human animal combination, which is also like, so it's really interesting.
And that's what's neat about shamanism, is that's really working in the realm of the power animals and the other spirit teachers. So you get a combination of both. That's why that shamanism is so powerful of a modality to help open you up also.
There's so many cool ways of opening up. Anyone else want to please share any other things you've noticed or questions that you might have about some of these things too?
I just, Vera here, and I just wanted to share that this is only my 2nd meeting, but the first meeting I attended was on creating altars, and that was lovely. And I've got altars throughout the house, and it brings me great joy. And so thank you for that exercise.
Oh, that's great. Anything more like that that you'd like to, that you would be interested in, like more using of the altars or the crystals or anything like that too? Figurines, very interesting. How you can use figurines sometimes to add to your altar. We have an Egyptian one, and we have several Egyptian figures, you know, as well as, hi there, Carol. Hi, did you want to share any of your experiences or things that you've noticed in different things? Because it's fun to hear you have some cool experiences with shamanism. Oh yeah, would you unmute yourself though? No, can't hear you. Oh, shoot.
She just didn't click the button.
You did click the button on the lower left-hand mute button?
Your volume might be turned off.
Yeah, that could be too.
The next one.
Put your volume up. While she's working on that, you know, Deb Starwalker was just mentioning about shamanic journeying, and she's done some shamanic journeying groups, and some of you here have been in that and have had some interesting experiences, I think, share. Maybe even Steve or Steve could share something until Carol gets it together.
Yeah, Marge had something she wanted to share.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Another option to what goes on outside of us is what goes on inside of us. And I had an experience with acupressure, and she was working on she calls it the windows to the world or something. But it took me back into my childhood, and I saw myself under my parents' bed and just watching legs, and I would do that when I was a little kid. Watch the legs, and they'd come up, change, the legs would walk over here. And I was telling a friend this, and she said, "Well, weren't you afraid of being seen?" And I said, I think I've been afraid of not being seen, because I was the middle child, and so you kind of get invisible. So I just think that's really interesting that we have so much inside of us, and connect with what's outside. It's just kind of interesting.
That reminds me of one time I went to a lady who does she uses an object, a feather, something to go back and forth. Can't remember the name of the technique. But anyway, then she says words while she's doing that. So it's kind of, you just follow the wand or whatever. And it was interesting because when she said a certain word, it took me back to when I was in a playpen yet.
Oh.
And I was sitting in this playpen, and my parents, one was in each side, and they were arguing. And I was like looking distressed. And I was just like when I was that age. I mean, it was like a huge flashback. And they were arguing, and I felt like I was responsible. That caused it. And it's so interesting to wonder if some of those words, again, can trigger memories and things we might want to let go of.
Yeah.
It is helpful, I think, to do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Carol, you still haven't gotten it together? Sound?
The name doesn't show up.
Barbara? Unmute.
Another technique I've truly appreciated, although I've never been able to complete the class, is Pat's class on teaching us how to release tension by shaking.
Mm. And
I think it's a 4-part class. And last year, I actually thought I was scheduled to make it through all 4 parts, but then COVID came. So far, the universe has not provided me with any more than 2 in a row.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to do that again in person, because it's something I have to do in person with people. Yeah, I know a lot of things that were happening got shut down, but that was one. And that is interesting. I had a person doing in a class in Tucson, and he was a massage therapist, and also very energetically sensitive. He works with energy as well. Well, all of a sudden during the TRE practice, he suddenly saw cords of light coming out from him everywhere, just coming from him. And he was like, wow, what is that going on? So 2 weeks later was the next class. And he said during the 2 weeks when he would be massaging someone, all of a sudden a colored cord would come out of him and go into the person and help them. It'd be just what was needed. So I've never seen that before or heard of that before, neither had he. But it is interesting that particular technique can open up energy systems. I have a lot of that happening. Yeah.
Deb?
Anne-Marie Chiason, Dr. Anne-Marie with the Center for Integrative Medicine. She has a book called Energy Healing, and she writes about it, and she's given teachings on the process of shake the bones, which actually has great history with a lot of Native people, Caribbean people. And it's good to do with drumming beats, and to just stand and for several minutes, just really vigorously shake the bones. And it just kind of purges any funky feelings.
Well, if anyone's interested too in knowing about, you can go online to YouTube rather and put in capital T, capital R, capital E, and it'll come up with some of the videos and how this particular approach that I was sharing with people, because you do it on your own the rest of your life. It's just something that you can do. So that's interesting to share some of those kinds of links or possibilities of looking things up like that to see how it's done. So any of you have some of those cool techniques that you might think people would enjoy, just email them to us and we can send them out to people. There's Claudia. Hi.
Howdy. I wanted to make a couple comments. First on the whales. It came to my mind while Elaine was talking. There's been some talk that we're in the midst of polar shifts right now. And I wonder if, because the whales have been on the planet for so long and they've survived those shifts and they've known how to navigate through those times, I wonder if perhaps that's what's happening right now, is they're starting to try to talk to us, and that's all I'm going to say. Just try to talk to us about it. I'm not going to put words into their mouths, but yeah. And I think that's probably something worth looking into, maybe meditating on for people who are interested. I have an energy worker in Michigan, where I'm from. I've been living out here for 2.5 years full time. And I found she never would talk about what she did, but I know that she was working on a whole bunch of different levels. And so I wonder, I'm going to ask her next time I talk to her if she's experienced the colors of cords, because she's got a lot going on. And I know I would get on her table, and one session with her was like 8 months of therapy and medical stuff. I mean, it was just amazing what this woman would do. And then another woman was talking about being sick and having some energy work and having a lot of women. I got sick with COVID twice this year, and last May I was very gravely ill with it. And before I started on the downward spiral, excuse me, one morning I woke up, it was middle of the night, morning, I don't even know what. And I sensed that all of my dead relatives were standing in a semicircle around the bed. And this was before I had started to get gravely ill. And I remember like waking up and going, oh my God, I'm in for a wild ride here, because my breathing had already started to get bad and stuff, but I wasn't that bad yet. And it was like they were departed, family members, some of whom didn't even know each other. I mean, from different sides of the family, gone many, many decades. And I'm like, okay, here we go. It was interesting just to have that experience and to see them in my mind's eye, just all around the bed. It was really bizarre. So that was something I have not forgotten. So, yeah.
I wonder if it would be helpful if, when we are like going through any sort of illness, even if it's minor or other things bothering us, if we would consciously call in and ask some of our relatives to come in and help. I know I do that with spirit guides and stuff, and I think that's something that opens you up a little bit more when you actually consciously acknowledge that possibility. So thanks for sharing, Claudia. That's cool. You're much better now, right?
I am. I still have post-COVID issues, but right now I'm in like a remission. So
Good.
we're hoping for the best. So yeah, it's a funky illness.
Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to share in this vein or any other vein of experiences they've had either with energy or healers? I know, Elaine, you probably had a lot going on with Reiki that you've already shared some. If you've had some interesting experiences with people with Reiki, would be kind of cool.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've done Reiki and a number of other modalities. My husband says you have to take everything coming down the pike. I said, yeah, that's me. So I mix and match. I don't do strictly one thing or another. I'll do shamanic stuff. If a power animal shows up, and I've been on the table where somebody worked on me, and they say, "Oh, is wolf one of your shamanic animals?" No, I said it's bear. Well, wolf is right there. So, you never know who shows up, and it's interesting because I always want to know. Well, tell me about it. What do they look like? What do they say? You know, why are they here? So it's a never ending learning process for me, and it's very exciting. And I get frustrated when I can't do it. Like now, you know, I'm a little old. I don't have a practice anymore. So this is nice for me, Deb and Pat. Thank you for doing this. It's a chance of communicating and sharing. It's very special to me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing, because this is the whole idea, how wonderful we can learn from each other. And you have years and years and wealth of experience. So that wisdom is good to share. You know, it's like why they always said in a lot of cultures, when we women get older, you know, or even the men, we're at that age where we need to pass down and share some of our knowledge. The grandmother
Yeah.
image.
But because we are all healers, we're referred to as old souls. We've been here a long time, and we have a lot of information, not just from this lifetime, but from the past. Some of you express what you heard from past, like words from out of the past. They serve a purpose, and that's why we're almost immune, not completely immune from COVID, but I think it's in the universe's interest that we remain here, because we are so wise. We are so knowledgeable. We've seen it all. We've done it all. We kind of know it all. My family resents that. Mom, how do you know that? You know, well, I just kind of know somewhere. And it's sometimes it hits you in the face. And sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But we're here for a purpose. And so, Claudia, I'm glad you made it through, but there's a purpose for you having to gone through that. And then I'd want to know, what do you come out of? What do you carry now that you gained from it? So yeah, please share.
I would like to respond to that. What came to mind, actually, not to answer your question, but before, Elaine, what you said about that I don't have a way to use my Reiki and my tools right now. One of the things that I've taken away from the COVID, because I realized I had to heal myself because the doctors weren't. And when I was really ill, I don't know why, I just intuitively gravitated. I was downloading native drumming and flute, but mostly drumming and chanting. And I would lay in bed when I was half dead with the drumming and I realized later that what I had done was I was shifting my brain waves so that I don't want to say leaving my body. It wasn't that, but I was letting my body breathe, and I was just separating from it so that I could keep the vessel alive. And so two thoughts. What I took away from it and how it applies to you, Elaine, is that I now realize if I can do this, I can do this, right? And I can do this for others. And so I've been experimenting with remote healing on people, just whenever I feel like it. And a lot of times I was doing it in the shower at night, or at nighttime after my husband would go to bed. And so I would say the same to you. You don't have to be present with, I've learned from this that you don't have to be present with someone physically in front of them to give them your energy. And you could play around. If you heard of a neighbor or a friend of a friend who's sick or whatever, just send it out. However your body is telling you, whether it's telling you to put your hands up or it's telling you to close your eyes and hold a crystal. I'm now learning it doesn't even matter what it is. Just do it. And
it's the intention.
Yeah. And I have to hope that playing around with it, because right now it's more playing than anything, that I'm helping people. I believe I am. If I want to help someone, I'm helping them. And we know someone in our my husband's was previously married, and his sister-in-law just passed of COVID about a month ago. And before I found out how sick she was, one morning she just appeared at the breakfast table in front of me, her energy, and I'm like, oh, okay, she's probably passing in and out right now of her body, her vessel. And so I started sending her energy, and it was like I decided I wasn't sending her energy to live. I was sending her energy to use how she needed to use it.
Right. Yeah.
And then my brother's kind of girlfriend, she's just gotten out. She's been in for almost 30 days back in Michigan. And I was doing the same thing. I'm like, well, you know what? can't hurt, right? Send her some vibes, because, you know, these people, when they're sick, they need everything they can get. But, you know, whether it's the whales, or whatever, you know, so that's my takeaway, and that's my sharing for you, Elaine, is you can still use your tools, significantly, just in a different way than you have before.
But
You
it's
know?
also not necessary to use those tools because we have different ones now,
Yeah.
higher consciousness tools.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you said, we don't need to put hands on anymore. We can just send our thoughts out, our intention.
You know, the other day I woke up and I was having a bad day, and I've done this twice. I've used a little bit of what I've learned in Pat's meditation group. And so I had some music going. I had some didgeridoo, because I like the didgeridoo. It feels very deep to me and healing. And so then I'm like, I'm going to experiment with my energy worker, what I saw her. And so I'm laying hands on myself and I'm drawing stuff in. And then I was using some Qigong, and I'm just like, I'm just going to play and see what happens. Well, I did this a couple days ago. And after I got out of the beds, was doing some of it in the bed, then I was standing and I'm looking out the window doing it. And next thing you know, I got the biggest body buzz I've ever had in my life. And it was such a trip, because all of a sudden I could just feel the energy just running through me. And that was really exciting. So that's part of my takeaway, I think, from being sick, is I'm just learning to experiment with my own self and see where it takes me. So.
You know, Marge also, Marge, don't you do energy work or
Not really, no.
massage?
Retire. I haven't done it for 20 years.
Oh, okay. I remember you had something in that area.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Well, you know, the power of intention is amazing. That's what prayer groups are for. And I think a key point that you said was whatever's the best for that person, let it be. Because we don't know what's best for anybody. All we can do is put that energy out there with that intention. I think for ourselves or for others. I love that. It's an ancient prayer too. So what about, anybody else have some stuff to share?
There's one thing with, or a couple points, is I don't know if you remember when we first started the in-person metaphysical group at Friends Indeed, that we had a time where we're trying to show how energy works with intention. And we had Steve get up in front of the group, and we the whole group sent positive energy to Steve. And then I was using dowsing rods to check the before and after of his energy field. And the after, his auric field really, really expanded and got stronger. So it was like, you know, showing them in real time the power of the intent and sending it to somebody, which, you know, Steve was the recipient. And then it was a few months ago, maybe even last fall, that we had a Zoom where I thought, well, we know that that works. Let's try it long distance. And we had people on the Zoom call. I think one person at the first time was the recipient. And then we also tried it where the whole group was the recipient of the rest of the group. And the feedback was that people could feel it, you know, and just through long distance, through the Zoom. And so, you know, it just reinforces the power of light and energy, that it has no boundaries. It's infinite, just like our intent, and that everything, because we're all energy in an energy field. So I think when we get back together in person, which maybe it would be this next fall, it would be good to revisit those basic exercises to see, you know, because a lot of people, they're not convinced of it or they don't understand it. So we can really practice it in a group and hands-on, and maybe we'll ask Steve to be the guinea pig again. Think that's good, Steve?
I also like Claudia talking about the use of sound, for sure, in healing. I think that's very, very powerful. And there was a long time ago, I don't know, maybe I heard about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a woman who had cancer, and she just took a singing bowl and just rang it like a couple hours a day, and her cancer went away eventually. And that's not documented. That's what she said. But it's the kind of thing where it does have power to be able to hook into that. That's why shamanic stuff has a lot of drums and rattles. And then, of course, all over the world, it's amazing how there's these wonderful instruments that are used from Australia all the way. American Indian flutes are very nice too. The flute music can be very powerful.
Yes, Steve, are you gonna, when we get ready to end, share your wonderful music?
Oh, well, Pat has wonderful flutes and drums there also. So
Like
all
you-
of us get some sense of a rattle going at the end.
Well,
So has any of the discussion sparked any kind of like sharing for anyone else, either from energy work or anything else that you've noticed for yourself or experienced over the years? Or because I know, Steve, you've had done some shamanic journey and had some interesting experiences. It's kind of fun for people to also know what that's like, you know?
Oh, I share it with my birds and the photography. I'm a visual person, and the journeying, the way Starwalker and Carol, she still can't hear us or talk. Is she still here? And just the Earth Day up there, Earth Day up at Carol's house is just a wonderful way to gather together and experience journeying. And journeying is a personal thing, but just so universal that anybody can do it, but everybody gets different results, and everybody has a different sense of a journey. And it's just like meditation. The more you do it, or if you do it on a daily basis, it gets just better and better for you. And you find connections, and synchronicity exists with you. If you're sensitive to details, the synchronicity will live through you.
Very interesting.
I thought that was interesting. You mentioned the Earth Day, is that through the shamanic journey, that using the drum, that spirit will take over and do the drumming. And that's what happened up at Carol's, just unexpectedly, thinking, okay, let's do a group journey to a power animal. And spirit took over the drum. And that's what's so neat, that, all our spirit helpers are able to coordinate with us to make even the experience so much more powerful. And, that sound of the drum was able to help facilitate an even, I think, a better journey for everyone that was there. So thanks for bringing that up, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone had any experiences with past lives? Just real quick, because I know that came up sort of in the discussion. Past life memories or
I have.
okay.
Yeah.
Let's have Barb first, because
She hasn't spoken.
not much. Barb, would you like to share? You have to unmute.
I've had a couple of experiences. The most strange one was that it was a man who was doing glass bowls, and so it was created, essentially the journey started with sound. And I was just laying in relaxation, and all of a sudden Popeye starts to come to me. And I've never really liked the cartoon Popeye, but it just kept coming to me. And it's like, why in the world am I looking at Popeye and olive oil? And I never, and then I started to see a drafting table and a big window. And I had the sense that I was there, and I was the lonely person, although I had probably some connections, but I was basically a lonely person. And that was pretty much the journey. So I looked up Popeye, and I found that Popeye, I forget the name now, but the creator of Popeye was a man. He lived, I think, in Chicago, and he created Popeye early in the 20s. And he had a family, but he was kind of estranged from his family, not a close family man. And then someone said to me, well, when did this author, this writer of Popeye, when did he die? And I didn't know at all. I was born in 1944. Well, I looked that up and I found that he died in 1937. And so it just seemed a strange experience for me that I would have thought of or been a part of that man. So I haven't figured that out at all.
That's cool. Claudia, thanks for sharing. That's great.
Quickly, I was on a massage table about 25 years ago, and the woman was working on my chest, and all of a sudden I was gone, and I was a man in middle ages of France. I was mortally wounded. They had dragged me up on a plank table, and they didn't know what to do with me, like in the great room, and they had dragged this big plank, and I was mortally wounded from a chest wound. And when I got off the table, I told this girl, because she was young, who was doing the massage, and she had a lot of gifts she didn't know about at that point that it was clear she had. And she had just peeled back the layers, and there it was. And I have never had an experience like that. It was really a trip. It was so cool. So
Yeah, I had a near-death experience, not near-death, past life, several of them. And one of them was, that was the most profound, was I had developed asthma all of a sudden when I was 40, 39, 40. I was like, I never had asthma. Well, I started to work with, over time, with natural healing, of course, continue with that. And I kept asking my guys, well, where's this coming from? How can I? And so I started to have like flashbacks when I go into a deeper, meditative state, where I would see myself being burned at the stake. And one of the things that was a revelation was I died from the smoke inhalation. I didn't even in that state feel burning per se. It was the smoke. And as I worked to let that come out, and that's interesting how that can hang on for a while. But my asthma is almost like I haven't had asthma attack in 5-6 years at least. I'll feel a little something in the lung, but then it's gone. So it's interesting to kind of have a past life. Excuse me, I get my frog in my throat. I have some allergies from around going on. So that's great, because sometimes it can really help us clear something as well from our that we're carrying with us, to let it go and consciously let it go. That was another thing for me with that. Does anyone else have anything with past lives or anything else they want to share before we leave? Because I think we're getting like 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Well, we've had some really good sharing today, haven't we? Do you guys like this format, or to have that sometimes?
Sometimes.
Sometimes it's nice to do the other stuff too.
Right.
But so did you want to end with anything, Starwalker?
It's open forum, so whoever wants to share.
Well, it looks like there's no more sharing, no other ideas or things that people want to or ask about. Is there any kind of topics that people would like to explore more in the future from this group that you might like to know more about?
I'd like to see Starwalker. I'd like to, when you did that session back at the Friends Indeed with the dowsing rods, I felt like it dropped in the, I felt like we were watching it done, but I would like for you to explain more about how they work, what it means when they open, what it means when they close. You know what I mean? Like, it's like maybe talk to us a little bit from a couple clicks back, if you would. I'd like to learn more about how to use them. And I have a grandson coming into town in a few months who's 9, and I'd really like to get some and work with them with him. And I'd like to learn more about those. I know you have a wealth of knowledge.
That's something that if we want to do for the next one, that could be a topic. Can I get a show of hands? Is that a good topic?
One of the Things we could
would
share.
like? Okay. Okay, all right, yeah, because I can talk about the dowsing rods and the pendulum and also body dowsing, where you don't need any tools. Again, going back to the basics of we're all energy and showing you how your body can be basically the replacement of the tools. So, yeah, I say it's good to get an understanding of what the people like, and then when it's topics where, like, if me and Pat know nothing about them, then to find maybe somebody who does, who's an expert in that, then that is willing to share with the group. So that, you know, we get a wide range of input from, like, say, the people who do that, like Pat, you mentioned with that little thing in front of your eyes, you know, and different modalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, okay, if that sounds good, we'll do dowsing for the next one. And if you have any dowsing tools, if you can bring them then, or have them available to you for the class, that would be great, and we'll practice with that. And can also go over map dowsing.
Does everyone have pendulums? Does anyone have a pendulum? Because you can always use a pendulum. Yes.
Or you can also just take a bolt with a hole in it and a piece of string and tie it to that. That's all, you know, it's very simple. You don't need a fancy dancy expensive crystal or anything like that. And so, you know, that's all you really need. So, all right. That
A
sounds
tea
good.
bag on a string.
Oh, yeah.
A
You
tea
need something
bag.
that's gonna have enough weight too to do it, but yeah, that's great. Well, do we want to turn it over to the music man? Yeah.
Let's see. It's the
Oh.
it's Al. It's Al.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All
We
right.
always enjoy all your, we enjoy everything about Starwalker and Pat and all of this. Thank you so much for sharing with
It
us.
takes the whole group participation to make it happen. So thank you to everyone, and namaste. Have a great couple weeks, and we'll see you then. So Pat, stay on. Is it?
Okay.
Namaste.
All right. Namaste. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.